The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everyone, we appreciate you joining us today for our webinar entitled Analyzing End User Analytics. This is the second and final webinar in our two-part NextSync webinar series. If you missed the first one, which we did back on June 11th, you can find it on our website, fruitionpartners.com, under the resources menu. As always, today's webinar is being recorded. So a copy of that recording will be shared with you sometime next week. Here's a look at today's presenters. We have Phil Hazelwood from Fruition Partners, who you may remember from the last webinar, along with Mal Herring from NextSync. Phil, if you could just say hello very quickly so people can hear your voice.
Hi guys.
Thank you, Phil. Mal, if you could do the same.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Great. Thanks, Mal. So if you joined us for a webinar in the past, you know we like to keep things engaging. So if a question comes to mind at any time, go ahead and enter it in the question box. You can also send us a tweet to the displayed hashtag up on your screen if you prefer the social route. Note that we do have a poll today, so be on the lookout for that icon on the corresponding slide. Finally, if this is your first Fruition Partners webinar, here's a quantified look at who we are. I won't spend too much time on this slide, but I do want to point out that we have become the only master solutions partner of ServiceNow in both the US and UK to work exclusively with the ServiceNow platform. This distinction, along with the attributing growth and scale, means you can get more focused expertise and solutions and better access to ServiceNow developments with us. And this is a big reason why customers keep coming back to us, as reflected in the number of completed projects and corresponding customer satisfaction score on the screen there. So I'll leave it at that, but if you're looking to better understand what exactly it is we do and how we can help in your service management journey, feel free to visit our website at fruitionpartners.com. So finally, here's a quick look at today's agenda. We'll be walking through a few initial slides first to warm you up on NextSync and discuss its purpose and function. And then we'll pass things off to Mal, who will take you through a live demo of the solution to give you a chance to see how the ServiceNow integration looks and interacts in your environment. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and pass things off to Phil. And there we go. You out there, Phil?
Hi Mike, sorry. Can I just make sure everyone can see the first slide?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, good afternoon guys. Thanks again for joining us. What I'll do is I'll run through a quick 10-minute presentation about positioning NextSync, and then, as I said, pass off to Mal. So this first slide just really describes the purpose of IT, how the purpose of IT has changed recently. So it's in essence all around delivering IT services to end users. The reason for this is it enables them to complete their job role effectively and efficiently. If we look at some Gartner research, so this has just been taken from a number of studies conducted. It's showing that 80% of security threats, 50% of performance issues, 70% of support issues, and 70% of all IT initiatives, so that's transformation projects, initiate from the end user. If we can better understand their infrastructure and start to address issues, there is avoidable spending around £300 per year. Mike, I'm not sure if you can translate that into dollars roughly, but it's a significant amount. NextSync, as I said, I've been working with Gartner. This is a a relatively new space, so that it's termed IT Operations Analytics, and Nexthink have actually been put as a cool vendor. So if you do look at Gartner research, there is a Magic Quadrant being developed over the next year or so, but there are a number of papers out there that you can go and read and research. Today, delivering IT is harder than ever before, as I just discussed. This is because of on-premise or SaaS solutions. We've got a mix of physical and virtual devices in the infrastructure. And again, because of the way IT can be accessed and consumed, we now have some central office users as well as a whole host of mobile users. We're looking at changing the perspective with Nexthink. A lot of traditional tools that IT use tend to be point solutions that focus on one area of interest, be that the back-end server or network monitoring. So traditionally, lights are green on the server and network, so everything's fantastic, but some users aren't able to access the service, and we're not too sure why. Nexthink itself is a enterprise-wide solution designed to investigate data from the desktop to the back-end server, and by aggregating the data, we can create unique visualizations and provide previously unable insight to IT. So, as you can see here, Nexthink is the transparent monitoring from the end user perspective back through to the back end. And this is the visualization that I was talking of. And what you're looking at here is all the connections made by all the users to all the applications through all the routes in real time at any time. So this itself is all the failed connections of a service, so we can immediately draw our attention to certain areas that might need addressing. This is just a brief overview of Nexthink themselves as an organization. The organization was founded in the EPFL in Switzerland back in 2004 as part of a PhD research project in which 2 patents were filed for. Version 1 went live in 2006, and today, 2014, we've got, and this number's a little bit dated, it's well over 500 customers globally using Nexthink. And as you can see here, there's a wide range of organizations benefiting. So from healthcare through to financial services and the public sector itself. So the French Ministry of Defense, as it says here, is the largest customer that Nexthink has to date, with 250,000 endpoints being monitored. This equates to collecting around 50 million events per day, and Nexthink like to see that there's a 12-month ROI, so it's got a very strong business case as well. With regards to the conversations we're going to have today, these 3 figures are very poignant. So there's around a 60% faster problem resolution, and up to 35% reduction in those incidents in the first place. The middle figure of 20% on savings is around VDI, Windows, and how you can monitor and verify and validate the success of those projects. At the bottom here, there is a quick statement from Gartner again, once again, which says prevention is futile. So the 2 figures of 30% and 14 show that corporate users infected with malware per year. So we know it's going to occur. We just need to be able to make sure and monitor and use the information and the intelligence gathered effectively. How we do this, I'm sure some of you that were on the last webinar have seen this before. We have what we call a collector, which is a small passive driver that sits on each end user device and uses 0.1% of the CPU, 0.15 gigabits of the network bandwidth, and this itself requires no configuration. So it'll send information back to the Nexthink engine, which is where all the real-time analytics and self-learning takes place. How we view this information is through the Finder and Portal. So this is what we'll be looking at today in a little bit more detail with Mal. which shows you the real-time visualizations, enabling the trend analysis, investigation of the data, and determine the root cause, and the like. Mike, I can see we've got a poll question on this page. Would you be okay to fire that up?
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Phil. So here is our first and only poll for the day. I'm going to go ahead and launch that to all the participants right now. So hopefully most of you can see a pop-up display on your screen. For those who don't, the poll question is, when there's an issue in your environment, what percentage of end users affected by the issue are known by IT? So a bit of a wordy kind of poll question there. I'll let that sit with everybody for a few seconds. But once you have an idea, you can go ahead and vote. The options are 0 to 25%, 25 to 50%, 50 to 75%, 75 to 100%, and then obviously I don't know. So we'll go ahead and close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, so I'll go ahead and close the poll. And here are the results. And it's worth mentioning that we had 75% of you vote, so meaning the results are fairly significant here. So again, the poll question was, when there's an issue in your environment, what percentage of end users affected by the issue are known by IT? 0% said 0 to 25%. A majority of you said 25 to 50%. That was at 44% of you. 22% said 50 to 75%. 22% said 75 to 100%, which is great. And then 11% said I don't know. So I'll go ahead and hide those results, and Phil will pass it back to you.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much. So with that in mind, we're going to look at some customer data that we have. And again, if you were on the webinar last time, you would have seen this information. This is around reducing detection thresholds through proactive problem management, which is something that I'm sure we all aspire to. So on the left-hand side, we have the traditional problem management model that was employed by this customer. And as you can see, the detection threshold there sits at around 24. So on 24 incidents into the service desk, there would be a problem raised, and it would go through the correct process. What we can see is there's a number of users. So there are either the alpha, which is the spike, the beta, which is the continual rise in issues, and then there's thirdly is the gamma, who just slowly sit under the radar, and this tends to be individuals that don't report issues into the service desk, and they can just continue to work, and they just see it as acceptable in IT. If we look at the next generation model, so this is the NextThink model, that detection threshold has been significantly reduced. So I think that from memory has come down to about 4 incidents. So what that's enabled IT to do is provide a better quality of service, because now we can detect those users that aren't reporting incidents to the service desk. And we can also reduce the number of users affected by either alpha or beta issues as well. So there are a number of benefits associated with reducing the threshold to really provide a better quality of service to the end users. This slide here just shows the iceberg effect. So there was a grand total of 4 incidents reported to the service desk. However, as you can see, that there were 72 users experienced 101 crashes in 7 days previous to that as well. So what that's showing is, great, we've had 4 individuals come into the service desk and raise an incident. However, there are more individuals suffering with that issue than we initially thought. And that bottom layer to the pyramid there, or the iceberg, it just shows that there's just over 3,000 systems exposed to the same issue. So that's saying, that there's potentially a greater effect if all of those users were to run that application or the execution, then they would experience a similar crash. So we can really start to provide some value, be proactive, take charge of looking to speak with end users to ensure that they're aware of we're dealing with problems, that they may experience an issue, but they know we're on top of that. So this is the 3x3 month matrix, and the headline figures are the 3-month comparison. So using NextSync, there was just over 1,300 incidents reduction in incidents to the service desk, and that equates to about 28%. And as you can see on the right-hand side, that 28% was attributed to a number of key criteria. So just to wrap up before we pass on to Mal, utilizing NextSync in your infrastructure, it comes across in 3 main pillars. So that is IT security, so the detection of anomalies, compromised endpoints. There's the central pillar, which is the IT operations, so that's the proactive problem management and the service management piece. And then there's the IT transformation, so that is ensuring that projects stay on schedule and they're delivered on time and at most value to the end users. So Mal, with that, I think I'm due to pass the presentation across to you.
Thanks, Phil. Can you just confirm that you can hear me okay?
Yep, can hear you fine, Mal.
Great.
Over to
And
you.
I'd like to also double check that you can now see my screen.
Yep, can see it.
Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mal Herring. I'm from NextSync, and I'm a senior pre-sales consultant for the UK and Northern Europe region. And I just want to say that I'm a technical resource as well. So for those on the call that have any technical related questions, I really would invite those questions, and we can maybe go through those towards the end as well. So just to sort of dive straight into the demo, what you're looking at in front of you now is a ServiceNow, typical ServiceNow page. Users phoned into the service desk and they're experiencing generally a slow machine. Now, using the information that NextSync collects, we collect somewhere in the region of 750 metrics per endpoint in the organization, so it's an awful lot of information, and we can expose that to other tools via our web API. We have a query language that not only can we bring in information, but we can export information out, and that's what we're doing here with ServiceNow. So by expanding the PC health, if we think about how a service desk technician might be using the tool, then in front of us right now we can see that there's various red crosses for the previous week, meaning that there were issues last week, and you can expand those different sections and see what they were. But for the most part, they're clear this week, but for this one issue here around CPU usage. So in order to get a little bit more information, all the service desk guy needs to do is just click on Open in NextSync Finder, and that will immediately take him to the machine in question, where he can start to look at the information a little bit clearer. So what you're looking at in front of you right now is our real-time timeline, and it's like a movie reel. You're able to zoom out, which I'll show you shortly, and you can scroll this back and forth, and a typical NextSync installation will keep anywhere between 2 and 4 weeks. So even if you have a user phone you up and say, do you know what, last week my machine kept blue screening or kept crashing, then the guys are going to be able to go in, they're going to be able to look at the machine, they're going to be able to go back to last week and look at the user experience of the machine last week if they need to. So one of the things that we're able to do is here you can see actually the user is correct. So it really does align the service desk technician with the reality of the issue. Sometimes you know, with the best of respect to users, sometimes we find that users can exaggerate. They can go, oh, this machine's been blue screening all morning, when in actual fact it was only once. And sometimes that can lead your service desk guys off on a tangent. And what we look to do is close that gap and give them an over-the-shoulder view of every single workstation that they're responsible for, and really make sure that they know the reality of what they're working with, and they can rule out sort of that situation that you might have a user kind of dragging them off into another area. So if I hover over that, I can actually see that the process that's doing it is Internet Explorer, and it's maxing the CPU at 100%. Now there might be one or two other things I want to check, so I can look at the properties of the machine. And if I wanted to, I could compare the RAM. Now this isn't really a RAM issue, but I just want to show the feature that we are able to quickly compare the RAM and the CPU if needed of this machine versus others in the environment. So we can see that she's got a good amount of RAM, this user, and actually one of the fastest CPUs in the environment. So we're going to go back to the timeline and we're just going to zoom out. And I'll give it a few moments to do that. And then we're just going to scroll back a little bit and we're going to look for when this issue first happened. And we're just going to look on that timeline and we're going to see if anything happened around that time that might potentially cause this issue. So if I wanted to, I could zoom into the event. And actually here, what I'm able to see is there were 2 new binaries seen, and there was a package installation, a KM player, and an ask.com toolbar. So here you can reasonably deduct that installing what could be a media player has installed an ask.com toolbar, and that's what's actually caused the issue. But what the service desk guys can do to get a little bit proactive is they can use NextSync and sort of query the environment to see, well, does anybody else have this issue? And this is where you can get really proactive. So I'm going to drill down into those events. And I'm just going to ask NextSync, I'm going to basically say, with a one-click investigation with that package, show me other desktops that have got this package. So there's another 2 devices aside of our 207 machine, and again, very quickly, I can look to see if they are having issues as well. So I can see that they are also having high CPU issues. So these are users that have probably done the same thing. They've installed the same toolbar, maybe it's or the same media player, maybe it's been shared internally. Internet Explorer is likely to be running slow for them as well. We can see that it is high CPU usage and it's IE Explorer.exe that's doing it. And these users might just be living with it, or around the water cooler, probably moaning that their PC is slow, IT don't do anything. But as we all know, quite often you will have users that will moan about IT, but they won't pick up the phone and talk to IT. And if they don't do that, how can we fix it? You can't. But NextSync does help you to be able to get out in front of the curve and start to attack these problems. And have the service desk guys do it as well. So when they see issues on a case-by-case basis, as you saw, it takes a few clicks just to ask NextSync, okay, was anybody else having this issue? So we'll come back to the Finder in a moment. As Phil mentioned earlier, there are 2 parts to the tool. You have the Finder, and that's where your technical guys are generally going to live, but you do also have the portal, and the portal is incredibly useful for management that want to view trends over the environment, and for long-term trend analysis, and as I said, for managers, if you've got, everyone's got reporting functions and reports they need to generate, you can automate an awful lot of that. NextSync can send reports, or you can design a module and have managers logging into this portal and consuming the information for themselves. So you don't any longer have to be bogged down by generating these reports and these statistics and these metrics. You can think about how you can put that into NextSync and deliver that automatically. So I'll just pick out a few here. There's an interesting one to show you the health ratios of an environment. Certainly, if you've got, if you've just inherited, say, a fairly untidy environment, then you might find these metrics are quite high. But if you ask for investment, and you're taking on projects and you're improving things, then over time these metrics are going to go down, and that's a really good indication, a really good way of proving to the business that what you're doing is working. There's also the ability to look at device health, what machines have got CPU issues, what percentage, what machines have got blue screens, application crashes, and there's a wealth of information in the portal as well. So you can look at compliance. You monitor if anyone's sort of accessing high threat domains. We can obviously now in 5.3 install to Mac and to Windows and to mobiles, so you can look at what devices you've got out there, what you're supporting, whether or not your mobile devices are in compliance.
Mal, it's Phil.
Hi, Phil.
Hi, just a very quick question. How long can the portal store the data for? So how far back and how historical can we get with this?
Okay, so the Finder typically no more than 2 to 4 weeks. The portal is indefinitely. So you have the ability to keep years and years worth of data in the portal if you want to.
So that it would be useful if we're rolling out new projects or transformation projects or company acquisitions, we can see that historical data right the way back.
Yeah. Absolutely. So in front of me, I'm looking at the Windows 8 migration module that we provide. You'd be able to use this information pre, during, and then post, just to make sure that the migration has gone smoothly. As we're talking about projects, if I just show the VDI as well, all of the metrics and all of the analytics that we collect build the ability to give you the insight into which machines are going to be easily transferable into a VDI environment and which machines might potentially give you a bit of an issue, a bit of a headache. So obviously, the users that are going to be on their desktops using traditional end user device, traditional applications inside the environment, you could transfer pretty quickly. But where the headache is going to come is when you've got people out on the road using laptops or external devices, and Nextsync's able to give you that information and allow you to quickly sort of drill down into what the issues might be. And you can see there's a wealth of information in the background here to build up all these metrics. But in terms of providing you statistics as well, if I go into the capacity planning, also with all the information that we collect about all the devices, all the users you have in your environment, the programs that they're running, the connections those programs are making, all the CPU and memory usage, we're able to build the capacity planning module, which will estimate if you are going to go into VDI and you're going to take the entire environment, what do you need to plan for? How many cores do you need? How much RAM do you need? How much disk are you likely to need? And although it's not available in the demo that I'm showing you, we now also do IOPS as well. So incredibly useful information for your data center guys. And the 3 lines here representing the average that we saw in the monitored period, the maximum that we saw, but crucially the potential. So if everybody came in tomorrow, used all the applications, all the computers, what would you need to plan for to make sure that your VDI doesn't grind to a halt in doing so? So to just show you another piece of the portal, what you have here in front of you is an overview of all your business critical services and how they're responding. So here I can see you've got the SAP service here. 77% of devices are having issues right now. I can choose to expand that down and get a little bit more information. But the portal, like I say, it's not going to give you the real gritty information that you're going to need. That's where you would go into the Finder. So again, we can nip into the Finder. And here what I'm looking at is a service overview. And I'm looking at the service, how it's performing per region and over time. I can see that there are issues. And if I hover over that, what Nextsync is telling me is that there are 48 machines in the environment that are seeing 5xx errors, which is 3 times over last week's average. So Nextsync will baseline services for you and give you a little bit of helpful advice if you are seeing a problem and you want to know, is that abnormal for my environment? There are people using it, so at this point we could probably rule out maybe network and certainly the back-end server, because if there are people using it, the server can't crash or anything else like that. So at this point, I'm going to look at the Fab web requests and I'm going to ask Nextsync to show me that information in a visual way, and this is where the power of Nextsync comes into being able to answer questions for you, because all of that data is taken and given to you in an easy to read format. And here, just by looking at that red line, I can tell that all of those requests are going through a single proxy, happens to be our European proxy, yet the US proxy and the Middle Eastern proxy are completely fine. So I don't need to really bother the server guys, probably don't need to bother the network guys. I just need to go and talk to the proxy team and find out why this is causing an issue and get them to look at it. I can drill down to the users, so we know immediately who's being affected by this problem. And we do integrate in with Active Directory as well. So we have the ability to bring in the name, the department, and the job title. And just scrolling up and down that list, one of the ones that immediately stands out to me is the CFO. So it could be end of month and they're using SAP to generate sort of accounting figures. They're probably going to be a little bit annoyed. Get out in front of the issue, send them an email, and just say that we're working on it, and we'll let them know. That's again another example of service list being very proactive, not waiting necessarily for people to call, but using the information that Nextlink is able to provide in real time and reach out to those users and just let them know that, hey, we're aware of it, we're working on it, and we'll let you know as soon as it's repaired, as soon as it's back up and running. So the final piece, again, if I go back to the portal, I can see that there's also an ERP issue I noticed earlier. 15% of our devices are having an issue there. So I can ask Nextlink for further information, but I also just wanted to show you that we do on the home page here, as you can see, have the ability to look at all the services by issues. Here I can see the ERP is having issue. I can see things like recent alerts. You know, has any machines blue screened or had a hard reset? We're showing dangerous activity here as well. But I also have the ability, I mean, you don't have to wait for Nextlink to flag up an alert. You can go and search for anything that you want to yourself. So if you're interested in something like Excel crashing, because you've heard rumors that it's having issues today, then you can type in Excel crashing today. Well, I might suggest last week. If I do the last week, actually, today might be, it might not return any results. So if I do the last week, here I can see devices where Excel crashes last week. So you don't have to be massively proficient in running investigations to use Nextlink. Any one of the guys that's capable of using almost like a Google search engine type term can get information out. And if I edit that, you will see what the investigation looks like. But one of the things I always encourage people to do is just start with a smart search, have Nextlink build the initials for you, and then just panel beat it a little bit more after that, and get to the information you need. Of course, that's only if the initial investigation hasn't happened to provide what you needed. So just by asking Nextlink in the smart search, you're able to see that actually within the last 7 days, 5 devices have had Excel crashes, and I can choose to drill into that. Again, looking at the timeline view, I can go back and I can look at these little, they're print errors, but if I zoom out, then that will show me the application errors. So here I can see application not responding is there. That was Internet Explorer, and there's the application crashes. And there's your Excel crashing. But you can also see all the services as they're consumed, if there are any issues. You can see new binaries as they were detected, new package installations, print jobs, boots, logons, that sort of thing as well. So incredibly useful information. So if I go back to our ERP service, again, here I'm able to see that we've got people that have got issues. There's 7 devices out there that have issues, but there are people using it, again, so you can kind of rule out the network and you can rule out the server. There's no failed connections, so the network is healthy. There have been failed connections, but there's none right now at this stage in the last 60 minutes. However, we're seeing application crashes. So at this stage, I'm just going to ask Nextlink to show me the devices with application crashes. We've got 6 devices showing. And I just want to drill down to the binaries on these devices that are crashing. So here I can see that you have this erp.exe. That's giving me the version number there as well. So what I might choose to do actually is just to understand if this is an issue just affecting these machines, or is this likely to be a bigger issue? And I can use the smart search for that as well. So if I go back to the smart search and just type in erp.exe, then I can see that there's 2 binaries that we are seeing in the environment. So if I look for those binaries, I can see the 2 here right now. Now these are, I can see that the platform here is Windows, so I'm going to need to be careful to make sure that I'm only selecting the Windows platform. And also we're only interested in what's going on today. So I'm just going to narrow down my search to the last 1 day. And what I want to do is just understand, is there a difference between these 2? So if I look at the errors, and I look at, I'll bring in the amount of not responding and crashing events. And actually here I'm able to see that all of the crashes are exclusively down to one version of the binary. So it looks to me like it's an updated version. It's possible that the update hasn't worked that well or hasn't been tested fully, or there's a problem with it. So if I needed to, I could drill down to these machines. And I know that that package so far is on 16 devices. So I can use an integration that we have with SCCM and export that as a collection and cause a rollback. But the other thing that I might want to do is understand, okay, well, if that package has been deployed, again, this is the service desk guys just sort of almost asking questions and going, I wonder if. So, they know that there's 16, it's been seen on 16 devices so far. But if they want to understand, okay, well, what's the true impact of this? If we go back to just search for ERP and have NextSync show us the packages that are installed, we can see here's our updated ERP package, and I could choose to look for desktops with this package. So whether people have called into the service desk or not, they might have not used this package yet, so they don't know it's a problem, but it's on 45 devices already. So again, we can roll back, be proactive, and export this out to SCCM and do a rollback of that package to a known working version before these people phone in the service desk. And that's when Phil was showing you the slide of sort of 7 crashes, and then below that the problem was bigger. This is just showing you how that works. It shows you the ability to, again, get out in front of the problem, use just a handful of users that might have a problem, search the environment, ask NextSync, is this bigger, get the answer back, and then manage it appropriately. So, it might be that initially this, ERP might have not been a P1 issue, might not have needed that response, but with 45 users affected or more, then it's a priority 1. You can categorize it accordingly and get in front of, the users, communicate it, say that you're aware of it, and really provide that proactive service that we all strive to provide. So that brings me to the end of my part. I'd certainly welcome any questions from the other 2 presenters. If we've got any from the audience, I'd be happy to answer those. And I'll hand it back to yourself. Sorry, am I handing it back to you, Phil?
I'll take it from here, Mel. Thanks. That was great, by the way.
No problem.
All right, so I'll change that.
But just let me know if you've got control back.
Sure. I think we're good.
Okay, so I'd be happy to answer any questions from anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great opportunity for the folks still out there to ask some questions. I know one did come in during the demo segment, Mel, and this seems fitting for you. The question is, what is the NextSync client installation in terms of number of devices, and how do you support such a large environment?
Okay, so there's 2 parts to the NextSync. As I said, the engine and the portal, and the engine is where clients come into. So all of the, and as we said, the collector is pretty much just a very small 500k passive driver, and it collects events and sends them to the engine. So in really large in really large environments, you would just have more engines. So a typical engine can carry between 5,000 and 8,000 collectors with web and cloud enabled. So if you were, say, 250,000 endpoints, as our largest client is, then you'd end up needing something like 50 engines. And you would split that up across the organization depending on location, time zone. There'd be numerous ways of doing it. And you don't necessarily have to place those engines all over the world. All of those engines can be in the same data center if you want.
Great, thanks. And just a reminder to the folks out there, if an answer doesn't seem complete enough, or if you have a follow-up, be sure to contact us following the webinar as well. We'd be sure and be happy to have a more in-depth conversation with you. So actually, I have another question for you, Mal.
Of course.
If you don't mind. So obviously the focus of today's demo was the ServiceNow integration. Can you integrate NextThink into other systems beyond ServiceNow?
Yes, absolutely. We've integrated into a host of other service desk tools and a host of other systems. So we've had partners integrate us in with sort of network access control systems and even bring in additional information into NextThink. So for example, one of our clients that was speaking at our analytics conference that we hold every single year was explaining how they bring in information from the HR system. So when somebody's due to be dismissed from the business, that user gets placed on a watch list, and there's certain investigations that NextThink is then able to run to look at their usage and understand what their, just be alerted early to any increase maybe in print jobs or any increase in uploaded or downloaded data to ensure that data stays within the organization and they're not lifting it out. But also if a user has been dismissed and HR haven't told IT, then it closes that gap. So IT know that somebody that's been dismissed is logging onto the system, they know who the user is, where the device is, the location, and they can take action immediately. So the sort of where NextThink is going as a product is to really be an analytics platform and be able to provide information to and bring in information from other systems to make sure that we are of use to businesses.
Sure, perfect. And I know the question and answer segment of a webinar is the time where a lot of folks start kind of dropping off. So one of the things I just want to mention to the folks still on the webinar before we kind of officially wrap things up is that the NextThink solution / integration is available on the recently launched ServiceNow store. If you're not familiar with the ServiceNow store, it's basically a collection of all these amazing applications that partners have built, whether it's for cost or for free. So you can go ahead and visit that, find the NextThink integration on there, and I believe it's free. Is that correct, Mel?
The plugin is free, yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, if you'd like a closer look at the integration, firsthand experience, be sure to check that out on the ServiceNow store. You can just Google ServiceNow store and find that online shop. So I'm looking at the question box here. No more questions have come in. Phil, I don't know if you have any more questions, but I'll start to kind of make concluding remarks here and give everybody some time back in their day, which is always a good thing. If there is an interest in learning more about the NextThink integration, maybe even with a private demo, you have a couple options. One is to use Fruition's new Ask a Fru service, which you can see up on the screen right now. This basically gives you 60 minutes with one of our process or technical experts. And of course, it's entirely free, which is fantastic. So this is a great opportunity to talk about whatever it is that's pressing you, whether it's the NextThink integration or your service management roadmap. So you can actually find our Ask a Fru service on the Fruition Partners website under the resources menu. You can see the screenshot up there, along with the direct page URL. So I mentioned there's a couple options. Obviously, you can simply reach out to NextThink directly as well, using the contact info up on the screen. I'm sure Michael Lexinski would love to hear from you. So I'll leave that up for a second as well if you want to jot that down. And again, like I said earlier, you can also check out the ServiceNow store as well and look for the NextThink integration up there. So it looks like no more questions have come in. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close down the webinar. I do want to just reiterate that today's webinar was recorded, so we will share that with you sometime next week. If you missed the email with the recording, you can always visit the webinar section of our website to view past webinars. So with that, I'm going to close it down unless Mal and Phil have anything to say. I do want to say thanks to Mal and Phil for presenting today. Great stuff. And obviously thanks to our participants. So we hope to see everybody at the next webinar.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Cheers.
Thanks.